All right, welcome to Growing Pains, a conversation with Ryan Matonis, who is president and I would guess partner co-founder of Lead360. And we're going to talk today about CRMs, outbound activities, and some of the challenges in selling to non-technical companies, and some of the challenges that SaaS companies have of their own as they grow from the technical core of their service to an outbound organization that needs to go out and lead gen. So, Ryan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
All right, and you're in San Diego, right?
I am, yeah. Beautiful
All
here.
right. All right. And so tell me a bit about you first. I looked at your LinkedIn profile, and you've come from computational biology and moved into really software as a service. So can you talk us through some of that change?
And so the long story short of it, I was working in computational biology, more focused, I guess, on computation than biology, but
Right.
just like the data science and computer science of bio world, I guess. I was working at a Fortune 500 defense contractor at the same time. Long story short, I figured out that I needed to do something other than be like an employee if I wanted, or sorry, I needed to learn how to market and sell if I wanted to do something other than be an employee. Um, so I started trying to, do a little bit of lead gen, do a little bit of freelance stuff, figure out just this sales and marketing thing. And so my friend actually came to me and he was building a lead gen agency himself. And he knew that this was kind of my focus and I was a software developer. And he's like, hey, I was wondering if you could build this platform for me to automate my lead list building. I was like, you didn't really have the budget for it. And so we kind of came to a deal where it was like, hey, he wouldn't have to pay to, keep it alive. He wouldn't have to pay for upgrades, but I would build this thing for him. He would pay me for it one time. I would own it. He'd have a lifetime license and I could go sell it to other people that can make improvements, things like that. And so that was kind of how Lead Engine started. It was like a cold email list building platform. And so you could just go build lead lists, send cold emails. And so I started using that for my own lead gen. And that was how I kind of did like my own self-taught lead gen sales kind of system. Started doing like co-marketing with other platforms that, do cold email, got some bigger customers through there. One of them actually, LeadForce360, started reselling my product a lot. And then we set up an acquisition agreement through there, like a merger agreement. And that's how I ended up where I am today. At now this much larger lead gen agency that I guess actually kind of resembles the one that very closely, just much bigger, that I originally built the SaaS product for. So
Right.
that's how I got here.
Okay. And so in that process of selling, let's just go to market on those selling to channels. Where was did you go to your friends' competitors with your own product, or where did you go from there at your first steps?
Yeah. I guess I started going after companies that would need lead gen as a service. The first thought was like, yeah, I could go and I could just start selling the software product as it is now.
Hmm.
It was really it was gross. It was like a couple really simple HTML pages. It had no user interface. There was no marketing behind it, things like that.
Right, right.
And it was also going to be selling it for like a tenth of the price of just doing lead gen for people. So I kind of thought about it for a little bit and I came up with a strategy that now I kind of refer to as like the mothership strategy. Whereas like I set up I was doing my own lead gen for people. And sure, I was competing with my friend, but there's a zillion companies that need lead gen. There was
Sure.
nothing, nobody cared.
Yeah.
Um, and so I started just doing cold email for people. I was using my SaaS. I was the power user of my SaaS. And then if people
Okay.
were complaining, like, oh, I got a bad lead, I shouldn't have gotten this, right? I could go into my SaaS and I could make those changes. And so I also had the agency side of things that was mostly bringing in like the revenue. And so it was like I didn't have to worry about going in initially, like going in and getting all those software sales. I could do it with a smaller customer base. I could be a little more hands-on. I could get all that feedback direct. And then I didn't really start having success with the software sales until really two things. One was lifetime deals. Somebody found me, they reached out, they set up a bunch of lifetime promotions. They sold more of the product than I ever thought was possible for a single person to sell. And I had this kind of come to Jesus moment where I was like, wow. I just like stopped posting like sales and marketing advice on LinkedIn because it's like, I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I just really got blown out of the water
But
there. Uh,
channels are awesome, though, aren't they? I mean, instead of one-to-one, channels are awesome.
yeah, channels are, yeah. And then after the lifetime deal thing, we started working on really just true channel marketing. So like, because lead engines, it's a lead list building tool. There's so
Hmm.
many tools in the ecosystem where it's like either it's an auto dialer or it's an email sending platform where it's like you can sign up, you can load your leads in, you can have a great experience, generate a ton of leads, but then you run out and like you got to buy more, you got to cancel.
Right.
So I reached out to those companies. I told them about lead engines. I told them that, hey, they might get more adoption, they might get more retention, they might get more upgrades if the customers had an easier way to get lead lists. So they started promoting me. This is where we got my biggest customers, or that was where I got the company that eventually did the acquisition with. Um, and it was all through channel marketing. And actually, very little of it was just me going out there direct, shaking people's hands, hopping on Zoom meetings with people. There was a little bit of it, but
Yeah.
it wasn't.
Product-led growth. I mean, that was ultimately what it was, right?
That was
It's
product-led growth, I think.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
funny. I'm so our company Outforce is a matching service. It's a dating service between companies that need to outsource and companies that have outsourced agencies, right? And I met the founder of Plenty of Fish, which is a dating company that got bought by Match. And I said, "Hey, I'm in the the early stages." I said, "Hey, I'm in the dating business too. So what are your top three learnings?" And he said, "Number one, it helps to be tall and rich. Number two." But number one, really, in terms of product, is function over fashion. Like it doesn't matter what the UX is like. It's if you have a 90% chance of match, that's all you need because they'll come back for the if it's close enough, they'll come back for the 95% and 99%. But so the key is the functionality, not the presentation of that functionality. And that's obviously what you nailed. You had really high functionality.
Yeah. And honestly, it's similar to a dating site where it's like a lead gen service. The product isn't like the way the email alerts are formatted or something like it's the people you
Right.
talk to, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. So now lead Force 360, and you're running new products, building new products for them, or are you enhancing the existing product line?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
So basically my role is the CTO. We don't really have like a quote unquote a tech department. I'm
Right.
responsible for the tech across all of our projects and platforms. And um, so if we have any service, like if our accounting, needs tech, like that's on me. Um,
Right. Okay.
but we are constantly spinning up new things. I am constantly trying to improve the things that we've spun up in the past. Um, yeah.
Okay. And so in your experience, you were selling technology to non-technical buyers, right? Like um agencies selling insurance was your primary vertical, I guess.
But right now, yeah, we're mostly selling leads to insurance agents and then a little bit of lead technology to insurance agents as well. A little bit of mix.
Right. And so as an existing client, what would they be using for CRM or lead gen?
Yeah, a lot of them for their CRM, there's really two things that insurance agents love. I mean, obviously, like when they sign up for whatever carrier group they're part of, they'll get like a like an out of the box standard CRM. It's usually so locked down that you can't even do anything with it. Like we put our policy data in here and we can't look it out. It's like more of a piggy bank than a CRM. It's like you'd have
Right,
to go
right.
smash it and break it to get your data back out eventually. Um, the other thing they use is like the insurance agency in particular. I'm sure like real estate is like this or mortgage. Anything where it's like a business needs this, there's like an insurance agent version of it. So it's like there's your insurance agent CRM that's like probably like a white label of all the other CRMs, but it has like these custom features about like policy management or quotes and things
Right.
like that.
Commission
Um,
structure, all that stuff. Yeah.
yeah, so it's an interesting industry. It's everything is so just like commoditized almost, but then also like niched down. And so there's a lot of people using that. What you really don't run into is you don't find people in insurance using like Salesforce, HubSpot, Pipedrive. Just like a lot of them never heard of some of those. And
Right.
there's just this whole other ecosystem where everything's like $100, $200.
Right. Right. And they're getting CRM or they're getting these tools from a variety of carriers, right?
Get tools, yeah, from everywhere. Everybody buys software products a la carte, tries to figure out how to put them together on the back end. Like they don't go into it with like their shopping plan. You go to the grocery store and you're like, I need this ingredient, I need this ingredient, I need this ingredient. I'm going
Yeah.
to cook something. They do it the way I do it when I go to the grocery store, which isn't how I buy software, but it is how I shop for food. Just buy a bunch of random, just stuff. Um,
And then
You get
hope
home and
you,
go, oh gosh, what can I even cook with this? It's like your pantry's full. You don't know what you're gonna make. Like I can't tell you how many companies run their tech like that.
that's actually very true. So when you come in, what do you do? Do you do an audit of what they're using and then layer over top of that with APIs, or how do you work that?
Usually step one is to see what's there. Like if it ain't broke, don't fix it. A lot of the
Right,
times it's broke or sometimes it's like, do they have a CRM that, I could plug into? Like the last thing we want to do is set up a second CRM. It's like, oh, a CRM is great. Two CRMs, not great. Like
right,
that's really defeats the purpose. Is it supposed to be like your sort of central source of truth, right? You can't have two central sources of truth. But step one is definitely auditing, not just their technology, but mostly their goals. Like, what are you
right,
actually trying to accomplish? Um, and then a lot of like working backwards, like math of sales. Okay, you want to sell this many policies a month. Well, what's your close rate? Okay, how many leads do you need? Okay, how many agents can work that many leads? Okay, so you need this many agents working this many leads. And if they do all of the processes and they follow up, and then they come back and they're like, okay, we got 100 leads. We called them each once or twice and nobody bought anything, right? It's like, well, gotta call them more than once or twice, right? It's B2B sales. It's
right,
like
right.
you're doing outbound sales. Like um
And so do you coach them on scripting as well and content, or is it just volume metrics on probability of sale based on call?
well, so it starts out, it's got to be volume and metrics and things like that. But then what you can do is you can kind of refer back to that and say, like, if I'm having this many conversations, I should be sending this many quotes and I should be winning this much business. And you just kind of look at each step and you're like, where does it
Right,
break down? And it's like, okay, well, you sent me this many leads, sent me 10 leads, and I talked to one person. You can usually figure out what's going wrong. It's like, how many times did you call? Like, oh, I called at the appointment time, and that was it. It's like, okay, they missed the
right,
appointment, keep calling. It doesn't mean they're not interested. It means they missed the appointment. Like,
right,
I
right.
think we had to reschedule this podcast, but here I am, right? So, um,
Yeah, so therein lies your computational biology. You're understanding humans and the number of times they're calling, and and the data around what they're doing. That's pretty
yeah,
nice tie
the
back.
the forensics of it. It's
That's
it's really
right.
simple. It's CRM forensics can be a little easier than genetics sometimes, especially when there's just no data in there. It just tells the
Yeah.
story.
So have you ever had a situation where it sounds like a phenomenal system that you're running, and it's value adding only where you need to plug it in. How do you modularize your product to accommodate for somebody who's got a great CRM and your system?
It's a great question. And those are actually the best case scenarios. We just figure out, we're like, okay, where are we pushing our leads into your CRM? It's like we almost tell those people, like, you don't even have to log into our dashboard. Like, we're going to go through the setup. We'll just use Zapier or something to make sure the leads get in. And
Right,
then the most important thing is actually, like, for us, this was true on lead engines too, was we can either find people that don't have working sales processes, right? We could find people that don't have working cold email campaigns and we could sell them leads and we could coach them through it, right? Or we could find people that do have working sales processes and do have working cold email campaigns. And it's like, if you already have a guy that's sitting there on a dialer calling warm leads all day and he knows how to work his leads and he's going to follow up 20, 30 times, right? You'll buy leads from anywhere. And if you have success, you'll buy a lot more of them. And so, like, if
right,
we're targeting those types of companies, instead of the ones that have never done this before and they need the new tools, then they need the training. And then even if they do
right,
succeed, which is far less probable, like they don't have the infrastructure in place to then turn around and upgrade it. So much of like the growth of the product that you're selling comes from who you're selling it to. And like we don't think about that enough. This was something I learned very early on with lead engines. It was like I could either go sell people on getting them to do cold email, or I could find people that were already doing cold email and I could explain to them that lead engines is just going to it's going to take the exact search that you want. You're going to point it at the cold email campaign that already works, and it's just going to keep adding new contacts every single day so it never runs out of leads.
right,
And I would close people in like 4 minutes with that conversation,
right,
right?
right,
Because
right.
what more do they need to know?
Exactly, exactly. And that's the thing. Anything that is a technology product that needs to be explained
hmm
is such friction against the sale that you may as well just talk to people who already know what they're looking for.
Yeah.
Which begs the question, how do you know before you've called which agencies or clients have that ICP, that ideal customer profile?
Yeah, that's a good question. And that's kind of the big one now in
Yeah.
2024 with GPT and just all the spam stuff. Like if you
Mm.
send a spam email, you send a bulk email, it goes to spam now. Like if you cold call too much, you get listed. And so for me, the thing that's working is using intent data. Um, so I
Yeah.
do still put on my hardcore software development hat every once in a while, and I go out and I
Yeah.
build cool things. Um, and that can be anywhere from like pulling a list of all of the insurance agents that are licensed in certain states that sell business insurance and then calling them to sell them business insurance leads. Like
Right.
just having that really narrow definition of data, or like I work with a recruiting company that wants to place more candidates. It's like, what if I could give you, a list of people that are hiring right now for roles that you staff and you already have candidates for? You could just call them, just try to put butts in seats, right? Um, that's a big one. Um, Insurance, like commercial insurance policies are all X dated, so they renew every year and it's like registered with the government and you can go find when people's insurance is going to expire in 60 to 90 days. And then
Mm.
in some states, they're called reporting states, and the insurance carriers, they have to report to the government, these are what our rates are, and it's publicly available. And if you have all the data and you're able to pull it all together, you're able to figure out who's paying more for insurance than they would be paying if they were with your client. And you can
Right.
just call those people. And it's
Right.
like, if you didn't have the dates and you didn't know who they were with and all those things, you'd have to make like 30 phone calls before you actually qualified somebody enough to start having that conversation, as opposed to just
100%.
calling them and just popping up in their head like, hey, I saw you're with this
Yeah.
person and I can save you this because you're this industry. Like, oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay, then do it. Right. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
let's next step is fill out this form.
Right. And are you seeing, so I mean, email is, it's insane how inundated we are in our inboxes with spams for services we don't want. I mean, we have a trouble differentiating because we're not a software engineering firm. We're the people who will filter out who are the ones that they should be talking to and the ones they should ignore.
Right.
But any outbound sounds like we're an outsourcing agency. Same problem, right? How successful is call versus mail in proportion to effort?
I mean, efforts, mail is always going to be easier than calls, unless you can
Yeah,
get somebody to make the calls and you have like a comp plan in place where they're getting paid. Like,
I should say I would say more hit rate um, versus effort.
oh, hit rate.
Yeah,
You can probably get more activations off of a phone list. You'll find that like email or LinkedIn activations tend to be a little bit better. Like if somebody responds to a LinkedIn message or an email message, like that's a little bit more intent than somebody just
yeah.
saying like, yeah, I guess, like on a cold call, right? Like
Right, 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 right.
you could send me an email about that. Like,
Yeah,
so there's things that like you do have to do when you're cold calling people. Like they're like, oh yeah, send me an email. That means go away, right?
right,
Like,
right.
okay, great. I'm going to send you an email. When's a better time to call you back? And give me a little bit more information. Just kind of qualify them, right?
Sure.
Um, so some of it kind of just comes down to that, even, right? Like,
Right.
but I think probably email still consistently gives, surprisingly, um, some of the best leads, because it's like people know it's a spam email and they know they need it badly enough that they're responding to a spam email or
Fair
they're
enough.
booking a meeting off a spam email. And it's kind of just like they're not going to do that unless they really need it. Like a cold
Right,
call, it's like you can cold call somebody and you can start talking to them and they might talk to you just because they have nothing better going on.
right, right, right. Yeah, that's true enough. And then on the calling, I mean, pre-COVID, you could always call the office, and now you got to call the cell.
Mm-hmm.
So there's privacy issues associated with that. And have you seen? And I'm not sure whether you started this call list campaigning before COVID and have seen a differential. Can you talk a bit about that? What's going on with
Yeah.
calling to cell?
Yeah, so I wasn't super involved in calling before COVID.
Okay,
I did a little bit of calling. We were kind of like I was getting my feet wet with it. Um, I think what ended up happening with the office phones is everybody that was like a short-term thing. And then what ended up happening was everybody's office phones ended up getting like redirected to their cell phones and things like that.
right,
I don't think there's a huge difference now. And then we probably wouldn't even notice it that much just because of like the type of software that we use for calling. We use something called an agent assisted parallel dialer, which means that when we call, we're actually calling like maybe 10 numbers at the same time.
right,
And we have people at the dialer company that are like listening to who answers the phone, and they like if we're calling and we're expecting to talk to like a Bob and you answer and you say, hey, this is Sean, they'll say, hey Sean, like I'm looking for Bob. They'll kind of try to set it up. Like if it's Bob, they just push it through.
Right.
And so it's like we're making like 1,500 dials a day and we're only talking to the decision maker. And it's like the tools that we're using kind of filter this out.
Gotcha.
Um, I wouldn't be surprised if dialing technology got hit by the spam stuff again, though, now that it seems to be picking up more, like in the
Sorry, I
same way
lost you
that
for a
email
second
kind
there,
of did.
Pete.
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised if dialing technology gets kind of beat up by the spam filtering the same way that email did, especially
Right.
with like the explosion of Chat GPT. People are going to want to be using like, people are all over like, oh, really make an AI cold caller. Like, well, one, it's illegal. It's already
Yeah.
illegal, but like they're
Hey,
probably
this
still
is
getting
George
ahead of it.
Clooney, and I'm here.
Yeah, yeah, it's. I mean, it's what it's going to be though in a year, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm so and so. I'm calling from so and so. It's like, Elon, is this really Elon? You really want me to buy a Tesla?
Yeah. Although it's funny, I've had friends who do know very important people, and they've called recently, and and the triple checking on who it really is so, everyone's really getting paranoid about who's actually on the phone.
Yeah, you got to have like your safe words and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. So what's next? I mean, you've got a great vertical in the insurance business. Are you, and you've partnered with LeadForce 360. Are you going to push the application into other verticals, or are you yeah, okay.
So that's on our roadmap right now. We're looking at other verticals. We think there's probably big opportunities like in lending and real estate and things like that that have sort of the similar model. You have like a lot of agents that are kind of part of their like brokerage groups and things like that. That's kind of where
Yeah.
we succeed.
Yeah.
Um, I've always
Yeah.
toyed with the idea of like, man, if we were doing this for ourselves, like if we were the insurance company and we were doing this for ourselves, like I can't get that out of my head. I think about it all the time. So
Oh
maybe,
yeah. Listen, I know a guy he represented a big software services company, um, and he targeted insurance companies.
hmm
And he went in, and these are big insurance companies, and some of them, and they also went after biotech. And he would basically, transfer their BPO and a whole bunch of, the usual low-hanging fruit for a tech services company, and improve their margins as a result by a substantial amount, which increased the value of the company by 10x that difference in margin. And so he decided, instead of selling this service, I'm going to go buy one of these companies and convert.
flip it.
And instead of making, he made good money. He made like 10 million bucks maybe with his services company. He went and got some big bankers to back him. He bought a company for 100 million and sold it for 1 billion. I mean, there you go. That might be your model. Just go take over insurance company, just kill it.
Yeah, it's something I've always thought of. I know I'm sure there's more that I don't know. Like I'm sure I could figure it out, right? But I'm sure it's always the unknowns. Like anytime you get into a new thing, it's like, I'm gonna, this is gonna be easy. And it's like, you just learn. Like I didn't know there was so much to know about insurance. I'm learning new stuff about it every single day. Even just like insurance lead gen, I learn new stuff about every single day. It
Right,
scares me.
right. Yeah, no, and it does pay to focus. Because yeah, everything seems simple from the outside. I could do that. Boom, I'm done. And no, actually, you have people issues, you have policy issues, you have legal issues, you have all these things you can't do, and there's reasons that people have worked around them. That's
Yeah,
cool.
that's whenever people ask me like, what kind of business should I start? I'm like, you should start like a lemonade stand or like 7-Eleven because I guarantee you it's going to be way harder than like you think it is. Like you should just like even if you want to like make a burger stand that just sells burgers to people, like
Yeah,
you're going to have to deal with, clients and customers and inventory and vendors and like
food poisoning.
margins and like
Yeah,
spreadsheets and like it's not just going to be making burgers. It's going to be 10% of it is going to be making burgers. Like you're
right,
still going to do all
right.
the other 90%, but why would you just do something really hard like you're going to make the perpetual energy machine that makes a better Coca-Cola product than Coke. Like that's your mission statement or something like for your first project. Like good luck. You're still going to have to do all this other shit to make it
Distribution.
successful. Pardon my French. I don't know if on this podcast.
Yeah, yeah, no, no. It's very true, very true. But if you can come in from a different angle, it's always really good. I
Yeah.
had a friend who had an advertising agency, and there was a water company that wanted to break into the water business. Just talking about the, your mission on that. Totally non-technical play here, but he said, look, there's no way you're ever going to get on the shelf. All these shelf spaces are bought by Coca-Cola and Pepsi, and Nestle and the big brands. You'll never penetrate. But this water was by far the best water in the world. Like, it had won all these taste contests, beat Evian and everybody else. And so he went after a different market. He did a whole bunch of research, and he found out that the gay lesbian community have pets, and with their pets, they would never let their dog, for example, drink out of the toilet bowl. Like, that was it. So he just started a category on its own of bottled water for pets, and created dispensers and all kinds of other accoutrements, and then made tons of money because they were the only one in that category. And that enabled them to go back into the shelf and get shelf space. It's very cool.
That's very cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Category creation.
Category creation. But I think in your case, it sounds like where you can scrape to get leads, and phone numbers are very available, real estate being a very good one, at least residential real estate. All the brokers are listed. And then lending, I'm not sure about though. That would be a hard one to figure out.
Yeah. Yeah, you might have to buy some like aged leads or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you're doing a great thing. And do you hyper personalize these, or do you just generalize in terms of the email outbound, for example?
Good question. It depends on the campaign. My best practice, I guess, for email is try to write an email that, like, say, try to keep your list narrow enough. So, like, if you're going after, don't just go after all recruiting companies, go after the founder of a recruiting firm that has 2 to 5 employees, something like that. And then write an email he's going to feel like you wrote them that email,
Right.
but there's 5,000 people on that list, right?
Right.
And
Right.
it's not so much like the variables, like putting in, hi, first name, I saw company name is based in this where, and you went to this school, and it played basketball against the school that I went to, like in
Right.
1997. Like, nobody cares. It's
Right.
like you have to speak between the lines, and you have to use their vernacular, right? It's like their business jargon, right?
Right.
And so it's like, instead of saying something like, if I could show you how I helped other recruiters generate leads, it's like, can I show you how I helped other recruiters get placements, or get job recs with companies that are hiring now for roles that they staff? And it's just like little subtle difference where it's like, that email couldn't have gone to an attorney, that email
Right.
couldn't have gone to an accountant, right?
Right.
This
Right.
person knows what my business is. He wrote me an email that sounds like it's about the recruiting industry and not the lead gen industry.
Right.
Just kind of those little things.
Right.
But
Right.
yeah.
Right. And going back to non-technical buyers, what would you say? I mean, you're not really in the sales side, you're the product side of things. But what would you say is the biggest resistance to technology from those non-technical buyers? Or is there?
Hmm. I mean, usually they know they're not going to adopt, like, there's sort of just an assumption that they're not going to fully adopt technology. Um, or I'm not going to purchase this product because we already have 11 other platforms. I don't even want to see what this platform does. We don't log into these other platforms.
Right.
The only time I see their logo is on the receipt every month,
Yeah.
Um, that's probably the big one. They just fear that they won't know how to use it.
Right. That's a
Uh,
very big important fear. It's actually true for me, and I'm sure everybody, that you're going to use 20% of this, and I'm not going to get the value. I'm not going to get trained enough. Is there a lot of training in what you're doing?
Depends who you sell it to.
Yeah, right. Like you mentioned before.
Yeah, it depends who you sell it to. And it's interesting, the more you have to train, the less you actually make off of a sale.
Hmm.
Uh, so it's something to just totally be aware of. It's like, and that's probably true anywhere. Like, if you're Home Depot and you're just selling chainsaws for people that, they're not tree trimmers, they're not carpenters, they don't have any logical reason that they
Right.
would be
By
an expert
yourself.
on this, right? You give them a quick little 5-minute crash course and send them on their way. Here's how you use the chainsaw. Like, what do you think's gonna happen?
Very true. Very true. Well, Ryan, is there anything that I haven't asked that I should have asked? Because you seem to be a wealth of knowledge in this space, and my audience is in the SaaS business. So Any learnings that are unique to your evolution in this space?
Um, I don't know. I think you asked a lot of great questions. That's my favorite question actually to end calls with. Was there anything that you wish I had asked? Um, Gosh, I don't know. Yeah, no, do you have any more questions for me?
Well, that's what my question to you is. Is there anything I missed? I mean, it's really interesting that you've grown this business from basically a bootstrap for a friend into a very powerful tool that is vertical in the agency space, the insurance agency space, but has applications across many. And there's so many people who are, I kind of feel like I'm talking to the devil, but he's a nice guy because you're continuing the spamming and the cold calling that nobody wants more of. But because it's well-researched lists, it's actually viable. It's the reason to go. There's a guy, Dan Martell, who I follow quite a bit, and he's probably the king of SaaS playbooks. And I was saying, lamenting that, cold outreach, I may as well just forget about it because nobody wants to hear. He says, do you believe in your product? Do you believe that there are people who actually need it? 100%, 100%. Then you should be reaching out to them. And that's true for your product as well.
It's a huge mentality thing. It's like if you actually think that you made something that is going to help people, or it's going to make their business easier, or it's going to solve their problems, or it's a good value, or they're going to buy it from you and it's money at a discount, which is just every B2B purchase at the end of the day. Hopefully everybody's just trying to buy money at a discount. That's how they think of it.
Right,
You should reach out. Why wouldn't you? You just,
right.
I almost feel like you, yeah, like you have an obligation almost to go tell them about this.
That's right.
That's kind of how I think about it. Sometimes I think about like all these people that like, they're just spending so much time just like building lead lists. I talk to customers all the time. Like, yeah, we spend hours pulling these lead lists and then we have to call them and we just don't want to do it. It's just like, well, I'm glad I sent you an email.
Exactly.
And I don't
Yeah,
know, at the end of the day, people give us a lot of, they give us a little bad rap, the people sending email or phone calls, or I don't know. We're not spilling oil into the Gulf of Mexico or anything like that. Like, there's so many, it's just
yeah,
worse.
you're just increasing the business of somebody who wants to increase their business.
Yeah, and you're not getting cold emails from like google.com or anything like that. It's small business owners, it's entrepreneurs, it's people that are trying to make things happen. So
Totally, totally. The only thing I hope that none of your emails start with is quick question.
questions.
I
I think we've used
don't know
that
how
one.
many quick question emails I get.
Yeah, you can set up like a rule to just filter those out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
No,
Well, listen,
people
Ryan,
openly.
it's been great to talk to you, and thank you for your advice. And let's stay in touch. I may be a customer.
Awesome. Yeah, Sean, it was great speaking with you. I had a great time. Thanks for
Okay.
inviting me.
All right. Take care.
Yeah, take care. Talk soon.